Have you ever felt something unspoken in the air? An energy between you and a man that you couldn't quite name, yet it stirred something deep, undeniable, and electric. Not a word exchanged, yet his presence lingers, his gaze feels heavier, and the silence between you pulses with meaning. What if what you're sensing isn't imagined, but the language of the unconscious speaking through him, revealing far more than he ever says aloud? Sexual attraction often arises not solely from the surface level of interaction, but from deep unconscious mechanisms within the psyche. One of the most powerful of these mechanisms is projection, especially of the shadow. The shadow, in analytical psychology, represents the hidden, repressed, and often unacknowledged parts of the self, instincts, desires, emotions, and impulses that the ego refuses to claim as its own. When a man experiences sexual attraction toward a woman, this attraction can be significantly fueled by his projection of shadow elements onto her. This kind of projection is not a conscious choice. The man does not sit down and decide that this woman embodies something buried within himself. Instead, something about her presence stirs something deeply felt yet poorly understood. Perhaps it is her confidence, her sensuality, her mystery, or maybe something subtler, a way of speaking, a certain posture, a look in the eyes. Whatever it is, it acts as a trigger, evoking qualities he has repressed or denied in himself. For example, a man who has grown up repressing emotional vulnerability might find himself irresistibly drawn to a woman who expresses herself with emotional honesty and openness. He may not consciously understand why he finds her so compelling, but the pull is intense. What he is experiencing is not merely attraction to the woman, but an unconscious recognition of a part of himself, his own emotional truth, that has been long buried. This projection of the shadow can cause the woman to appear larger than life to him. She is no longer just a person. She becomes a symbol, a carrier of unconscious meaning. In this way, sexual attraction becomes entangled with psychological need. The man may idealize her, pursue her with urgency, or become obsessed. These reactions are rarely rooted in the woman's actual behavior or character, but rather in what she represents to his unconscious mind. She is a vessel for his inner contradictions, a mirror for the rejected or suppressed parts of his psyche. This is why sexual attraction can often feel confusing, irrational, or overwhelming. The psyche does not distinguish between the real and the symbolic when it is under the influence of projection. Moreover, this shadow projection is often accompanied by ambivalence. Because the shadow contains both creative and destructive energies, both life-giving passion and dangerous compulsion, the man may feel both drawn to and threatened by the object of his desire. He may oscillate between admiration and resentment, closeness and distance, charm and withdrawal. These mood swings are not necessarily reflective of the woman's actions, but of his internal conflict with the shadow parts of himself that she has activated. Another layer of this phenomenon is that the man may unconsciously attempt to possess or control the woman, not out of malice, but out of a desperate attempt to master the shadow within himself. If she represents his own denied power or sensuality, his pursuit of her becomes a pursuit of his own wholeness, a misguided effort to reclaim what he has lost. Yet, because he is not aware of this psychological dynamic, the relationship can become strained, distorted by expectations and emotional intensity that far exceed the reality of the situation. This unconscious dance between projection and attraction is a common, though often invisible, force in human relationships. Understanding it requires more than psychological knowledge. It requires introspection, self-awareness, and the courage to confront the aspects of oneself that lie in shadow. When a man is sexually attracted to a woman in a way that feels urgent, symbolic, or overwhelming, it may be that she has become the mirror for a part of his soul he has long exiled. He sees her, and through her he sees himself. The body is a profound communicator of truths that the conscious mind may struggle to articulate. In the context of sexual attraction, body language becomes a powerful and involuntary vehicle for the psyche's deeper desires. When a man is sexually attracted to someone, his physical behavior often shifts in subtle, yet revealing ways. These expressions bypass his conscious control. They emerge from instinct, shaped by archetypal forces that influence how the unconscious relates to the world. The body, governed by these forces, becomes a conduit for expressing libido, the psychic energy associated with desire, creation, and life force. Sexual attraction ignites a constellation of micro-behaviors that reflect this surge of libido. Prolonged eye contact is one of the most potent indicators. The eyes seek not only to observe but to merge. When a man gazes steadily or repeatedly in a woman's direction, particularly toward her face or eyes, it is often not simply curiosity. It is a non-verbal attempt to connect, to experience her essence, to dissolve the boundaries between self and other. This kind of eye contact is not calculated. It is compelled, arising from a force within him that seeks union with what it perceives as desirable, mysterious, or vitalizing. Physical orientation reveals further cues. The man's body will naturally turn toward the woman, often subconsciously aligning his shoulders, feet, or even pelvis in her direction. He may unconsciously mirror her posture, gestures, or vocal tone, an instinctual act that the psyche performs when it feels an affinity or desire. Mirroring is not imitation, it is resonance. The unconscious picks up on patterns and aligns itself with the object of attraction as a way of deepening the psychic bond. These behaviors occur without deliberate intention and are usually only noticeable in hindsight. Another frequent expression of attraction through body language is the reduction of physical barriers. A man who is drawn to a woman may lower objects between them, lean in closer, or angle his body to face her directly. These are not always gestures of social etiquette. More often they are instinctual actions that reflect a desire for psychological and physical closeness. The libido, stirred by attraction, seeks to diminish space, to shorten the distance between subject and object. This yearning for proximity manifests through subtle spatial behaviors that the conscious mind does not dictate. Hands, too, can reveal much. A man who is attracted may find his hands restless, touching his own face, adjusting his clothes, or finding excuses to make contact with her surroundings. If physical touch occurs, even incidentally, a brush of the arm, a guiding hand on the lower back, it is rarely incidental at all. It is a reaching out, not only in flesh but in psyche. These gestures communicate what words often cannot: the desire to bridge separation, to connect through sensation and presence. Even the voice undergoes transformation. The tone may soften, deepen, or become more deliberate. Speech patterns may slow as he seeks to be heard and to listen, both of which are unconscious acknowledgments of the other's significance. The libido, expressed through voice, does not only carry meaning in content, but in rhythm, tone, and cadence. The unconscious seeks to please, to attract, and to attune itself to the rhythms of the desired. These bodily expressions do not operate in isolation. They are manifestations of internal energy patterns that are ancient and universal. When a man is sexually attracted, His body becomes animated by archetypal instincts that drive him toward union, not simply for physical satisfaction, but for psychological completeness. His movements, gestures, and attention become oriented toward the person who evokes this internal stirring, whether he realizes it or not. His body begins to speak a language that his conscious mind may not yet understand. Sexual attraction, when viewed through the deeper lens of the psyche, rarely expresses itself in straightforward declarations. Instead, it often communicates through a complex network of symbols, gestures, and meaningful acts that seem ordinary on the surface, but are rich with psychological significance. These symbolic expressions are the unconscious's language, acts that carry emotional weight, mythic structure, and archetypal energy. A man who is sexually attracted to a woman may not always speak of desire directly. Rather, his unconscious mind finds symbolic pathways to reveal his interest. Pathways shaped by inner needs, cultural archetypes, and personal associations. One of the most common ways this symbolic communication emerges is through acts of helpfulness or offering. He may go out of his way to assist her with small tasks, fix something broken, or provide unexpected resources. To the casual observer, this may appear as simple generosity, but within the symbolic structure of the psyche, this is a ritual of courtship. The offering is not only practical, it is psychological. The unconscious seeks to demonstrate value, to gain favor, and to enact an ancient archetype of the provider or protector. These gestures are less about the specific content and more about the energy behind them. "I see you as significant," the action says, "and I am moved to serve." Symbolic communication also appears in the way a man physically places himself in relation to the woman. He may find reasons to share space, to sit near her, to walk beside her without necessity. These movements are symbolic approaches, expressions of a desire to be psychically and emotionally close. They arise from a longing for union, not just in a physical sense, but in the Jungian sense of individuation, where opposites seek reconciliation, where the psyche moves toward wholeness through the encounter with the other. Interest in the woman's inner world is another powerful symbol of attraction. A man may begin to ask deeper questions about her beliefs, childhood, dreams, or passions. He is not simply making conversation, he is probing the symbolic layers of who she is. The unconscious recognizes that sexual attraction is not limited to the physical body, it is a totality of presence. By showing interest in her story, he engages in a symbolic merging, trying to understand the emotional and psychic map of the woman who activates something within him. This exchange of inner material, memories, values, visions, becomes a sacred ritual of connection. Symbolic communication can also manifest in the way he shares parts of himself. A man who is sexually and emotionally drawn to someone may begin to reveal vulnerabilities, past wounds, or personal dreams. This is not just disclosure, it is offering. In psychological terms, he is placing a symbolic artifact of his inner self before her, an act of trust, an invitation. The more personal the content, the more symbolic its meaning. He is not merely telling her something, he is inviting her into a space within him, hoping for resonance, understanding, or healing. Another subtle form of symbolic communication is through humor, teasing, or playful provocation. These behaviors often serve as veils for desire, safe expressions that mask deeper feelings. Humor creates connection, lowers defenses, and allows the libido to move freely under socially acceptable forms. Playfulness, in this sense, becomes ritualized courtship, an echo of childhood instinct mingled with adult longing. The unconscious uses humor not just to entertain, but to test receptivity, to initiate symbolic intimacy. Finally, even silence can be symbolic. A man may become quieter around someone he is drawn to, not out of disinterest, but because the unconscious is stirred. Words may retreat while internal conflict rises, between desire and fear, between control and surrender. In this way, absence of speech becomes its own symbol, revealing the depth of emotional charge that cannot yet be processed through direct expression. The unconscious does not rely solely on the spoken word to reveal truth. It relies on symbol. And in attraction, every gesture may carry a deeper message. When a man is sexually attracted to a woman, his emotional landscape often undergoes a transformation that goes beyond desire itself. Sexual attraction is not merely a physical impulse. It is an energetic charge that activates deeper layers of the psyche, and with it comes emotional transference. This psychological mechanism causes feelings originally rooted in past experiences, unresolved attachments, or unconscious expectations to be redirected onto the object of desire. In this case, the woman becomes the recipient of feelings that are not only about her, but also about what she symbolizes to the man. The emotions he feels, jealousy, protectiveness, intensity, even anxiety, often exceed what the situation calls for and signal that unconscious forces are at play. Emotional transference is most evident when the man begins reacting in ways that feel disproportionate or deeply charged. He may become unusually invested in her actions, moods, or opinions. Her presence affects his mood in ways he may not fully understand. If she pays attention to someone else, he might feel wounded or possessive, not because of any commitment or agreement between them, but because her attention has become a source of emotional regulation for him. By the time the day comes, she has become a vessel for projection, carrying emotional weight that originates elsewhere. His sense of security or identity begins to subtly depend on her responses, even if he does not consciously realize it. This emotional intensity is often driven by archetypal patterns rooted in early relational experiences. The woman may unconsciously evoke the mother archetype, the lover archetype, or the anima, the internal feminine aspect of the male psyche. When these archetypes are activated, the man's emotions toward her become exaggerated. He may feel both awe and fear, desire and vulnerability. These feelings are not necessarily about her individual qualities. They are reflections of something internal that has been awakened. Attraction, in this framework, becomes not a personal event, but a mythic reenactment, an attempt by the psyche to reconnect with something once lost or longed for. In such moments, protectiveness can surface strongly. The man may feel a need to guard her from harm, speak on her behalf, or ensure her comfort. These behaviors, while potentially caring, are often symbolic of deeper psychological impulses. He may be attempting to rescue or preserve something within himself that she has come to represent. The urge to protect is not only about her safety, it is about the safeguarding of a part of his own psyche that feels exposed through the encounter with her. The woman's well-being becomes intertwined with his emotional state, and her pain or happiness begins to carry meaning far beyond the literal. Jealousy is another powerful sign of emotional transference. A man experiencing jealousy in the early stages of attraction, before any relationship has formed, often reveals the intensity of his inner attachment. The thought of her sharing emotional or physical closeness with another evokes not just insecurity, but a threat to something sacred. In such cases, the woman represents more than herself. She has become an emotional symbol of wholeness, connection, of validation. Her attention becomes a form of psychic nourishment, and its absence or redirection can create a sense of psychic deprivation. He may also experience mood swings or inner conflict. Attraction coupled with emotional transference can bring about both exhilaration and distress. The joy of being near her is met with the fear of rejection, the thrill of connection shadowed by the dread of loss. These oscillations are not the result of her actions, but arise from within his psyche, as it grapples with unconscious material. What he feels is not only attraction, but an eruption of unresolved emotion seeking expression through her presence. Such emotional states point to the fact that she has become a psychic figure, not just a person. She is no longer simply herself in his eyes. She is the embodiment of something deeply yearned for, feared, or once wounded. Through emotional transference, the psyche attempts to complete an inner story, and the attraction becomes the stage upon which this drama unfolds. When a man is sexually attracted to a woman, his connection to her can manifest in ways that seem oddly timed, intuitively aligned, or eerily coincidental. These moments are often labeled as chance or coincidence, but from a depth psychological perspective, they may reflect something more profound, the operation of synchronicity. This concept refers to the meaningful alignment of inner states and outer events without a clear causal relationship. Sexual attraction is not merely a physical or emotional state. It activates the psyche in such a way that one's inner world begins to shape and respond to the external environment. The woman he is drawn to becomes a focal point around which this psychic energy constellates, giving rise to synchronistic experiences that feel charged with significance. These experiences might take the form of him unexpectedly encountering her in places neither planned to be, or receiving a message from her just as he was thinking about her. There is a felt sense of connection that defies logic, a subtle rhythm between thought and reality that suggests something deeper is happening beneath the surface. When libido, or psychic energy, is intensely focused on a person, the boundaries between inner and outer begin to blur. The psyche reaches out, as if trying to unite with the object of its attraction, not just through conversation or presence, but through the environment itself. In this way, external reality becomes a mirror of internal longing. Such phenomena are often dismissed by the rational mind, but to the unconscious, they are markers of psychic alignment. When a man repeatedly finds himself in the woman's proximity without conscious effort, or when their paths seem to cross at just the right moments, it can feel like destiny or fate. In psychological terms, these are the outer expressions of an archetypal pattern unfolding. The woman may represent more than a potential partner. She may symbolize an inner process of transformation, and the synchronistic events around her reflect the psyche's attempt to draw attention to that process. The attraction, then, becomes a portal not only to her, but to parts of himself he may not yet fully know. The experience of being emotionally or mentally in tune with her is another expression of this pattern. He may sense her moods, know when something is wrong, or feel her emotional state without clear cues. This intuitive attunement is not magic. It is the psyche responding to a significant inner object with heightened awareness. His unconscious is deeply engaged, scanning for patterns, meanings, and connection. The woman has become a symbolic center of gravity, and his psychic system reorients itself around her presence. These synchronistic patterns often carry a numinous quality, a sense of awe mystery, or spiritual charge. The man may not fully understand what is happening, but he feels it is important. He might interpret it as a sign, a message, or a confirmation of a deeper bond. These interpretations are not necessarily accurate in literal terms, but they reflect the symbolic truth that the psyche is awakening. The woman has triggered a movement within him that reaches beyond desire and into the realm of meaning. Attraction that unfolds through synchronicity often has a transformative quality. The man may feel that his ordinary world has shifted, that there is a secret order guiding events. This perception emerges because the libido, once directed outward, begins to touch archetypal themes: union, longing, destiny, wholeness. These are not fantasies, they are psychological realities experienced through the lens of attraction. When she appears in dreams, in unexpected moments, or when the world seems to echo thoughts of her, it is not randomness, it is the unconscious expressing itself through the symbols of real life. The psyche does not separate the inner from the outer. It communicates in patterns, and in the presence of deep attraction, the world itself may begin to speak. Sexual attraction, especially when it arises from the deeper layers of the unconscious, often leads a man to retreat inward before he is capable of approaching outward. This inner withdrawal is not a sign of disinterest. Rather, it is frequently the result of intense psychological stirring that forces him into contemplation, confusion, or even self-confrontation. The object of desire, here the woman, becomes a mirror in which he sees not only her qualities, but also unacknowledged aspects of himself. Attraction, in this sense, is not merely a pursuit of another, but a confrontation with one's own complexity, shadows, and unmet needs. The deeper the attraction, the more likely it is to trigger internal conflict, hesitation, or silence. A man who is drawn powerfully to a woman may find himself becoming quiet, distracted, or emotionally distant, not because his interest has faded, but because he is trying to process what her presence evokes within him. The unconscious has been stirred, and with it comes material he may not be ready to understand. Desire awakens vulnerability, fear of rejection, fear of inadequacy, and the longing for connection that is both exhilarating and threatening. In this space, the man often enters a state of reflection that can be mistaken for detachment. He might delay expressing himself, avoid making a move, or behave with inconsistency. These behaviors do not arise from calculation, but from the psyche's attempt to sort through a flood of emotions and symbols. The woman may embody qualities that challenge his current self-concept: confidence, sensuality, emotional depth, or mystery. She may call forth a longing that he has kept hidden, or activate memories of past attachments, heartbreaks, or unmet needs. As a result, his attraction to her is not linear. It is circular, filled with advances and retreats, with moments of openness followed by withdrawal. The psyche does not move with efficiency, it moves with depth. The man's silence or hesitation is often a sign that he is undergoing an inner transformation that precedes outer action. This quiet conflict may also be rooted in fear of vulnerability. To approach someone with genuine sexual and emotional attraction requires the man to present not only desire, but truth. The more he values her, the more the stakes are raised. In such cases, the attraction brings with it a burden of sincerity, a requirement to show himself in full. If he is not ready to be seen in this way, he may retreat. The hesitation, then, is not a dismissal of her worth, but a defense mechanism born of the ego's resistance to exposure. He may delay conversation, avoid eye contact, or communicate in fragmented ways because his unconscious is not yet at peace with what he feels. In this space of internal ambivalence, dreams, fantasies, and private thoughts often take the place of action. The man may imagine scenarios with her, analyze past interactions, or rehearse conversations that never happen. These mental activities are not trivial. They are the psyche's symbolic way of preparing for contact. Before he can speak to her, he must speak with himself. Before he can reach out, he must make sense of what she represents to him. This inner journey can take time, and during that period his outer behavior may seem ambiguous. Moreover, if he has previously experienced emotional pain, betrayal, or shame, his unconscious may react to attraction with a kind of protective silence. The woman becomes both a promise and a threat, the possibility of fulfillment and the possibility of wounding. His withdrawal becomes a way of containing the chaos stirred by desire. He may remain present physically, yet emotionally obscure, waiting for clarity or courage to emerge from the fog of his own psychological depths. This silence is not empty. It is filled with unspoken yearning, fear, reverence, and the soul's slow preparation for the next step toward intimacy. In the quiet unfolding of sexual attraction, what often appears as surface-level behavior is in truth a profound psychological phenomenon, a dance of archetypes, instincts, and symbols playing out in the theater of the unconscious. A man's subtle cues, his symbolic gestures, his emotional fluctuations, his intuitive alignment with the woman he desires. Each of these is not merely a reaction to her presence, but a mirror of his inner world responding to something that stirs the soul. What we perceive as longing, hesitation, or synchronicity is the psyche reaching for connection, for meaning, for completion. In every glance, every withdrawal, every inexplicable coincidence, the deeper self speaks, not in words, but in the rich symbolic language of desire. To truly understand whether he is sexually attracted to you is to listen beyond the obvious, to witness how the soul reveals itself, not in declarations, but in patterns, gestures, and emotional resonance. Here, in the realm where psyche and body entwine, the truth of attraction quietly waits to be seen.